Major Isaiah Washington stands frozen in his kitchen watching a CNN breaking news alert. Officer Ryan Keller's body discovered at his home execution style. Just 7 days after Isaiah's near-fatal traffic stop. His phone vibrates a text from an unknown number. Justice delivered. Stand down, Major. The Pentagon's shadow had moved faster than he ever imagined. Before we dive into this shocking tale of justice and revenge, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you believe the military protects its own no matter what, hit that like button and subscribe to see how this unfolds. What would you do if the system failed you, but a powerful organization had your back? Major Isaiah Washington adjusted his rearview mirror as he drove his sleek black Audi through the small town of Mapleton, Virginia. After 3 grueling days of intelligence briefings at the Pentagon, the 39-year-old Army officer was eager to get home to his wife and daughter. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the road as he carefully maintained the speed limit, always conscious of how police might perceive a black man in an expensive car. Isaiah's military career spanned 15 years, including 3 combat tours in Afghanistan, where he'd earned multiple commendations for intelligence operations that saved countless American lives. His current assignment at the Pentagon involved sensitive work that few outside the highest levels of military intelligence were cleared to know about. The road ahead was clear when flashing lights suddenly appeared in his mirror. Isaiah sighed, pulling over promptly and placing both hands visibly on the steering wheel, a routine precaution his father had taught him decades ago. Officer Ryan Keller approached with his hand already resting on his holstered weapon, a detail Isaiah immediately noted with professional concern. "License and registration," Keller demanded without offering a reason for the stop. "Officer, may I ask why I'm being pulled over?" Isaiah asked politely, maintaining eye contact. Keller's face hardened. "Broken taillight. License and registration now." Isaiah knew his taillight wasn't broken. He'd just completed his car's maintenance check yesterday. But arguing would only escalate the situation. "I'm going to reach for my wallet in my jacket pocket and then get my registration from the glove compartment." He narrated calmly, making no sudden movements. As he handed over his military ID and driver's license, Isaiah noticed Keller's expression shift from routine hostility to something darker. "Military, huh? You don't look like officer material to me," Keller remarked, examining the ID with obvious skepticism. "I'm a major with Army intelligence, sir. I'm stationed at the Pentagon," Isaiah explained evenly, though a familiar knot of tension began forming in his stomach. Keller handed back the ID with a dismissive flick. "Step out of the vehicle." Isaiah blinked in surprise. "May I ask why, officer? I haven't violated any traffic laws." Keller's hand returned to his weapon. "You match the description of a suspect in an armed robbery. Out of the car. Now." This was an obvious pretext. Isaiah was wearing a pressed uniform shirt and slacks, hardly the attire of someone who'd just committed a robbery. But he knew the danger of hesitation. "I'm complying, officer. I'm opening my door slowly," he narrated, maintaining a calm professionalism honed through years of crisis situations. As Isaiah carefully stepped out, he reached toward his back pocket. "I have my service record here that confirms my identity and—" The movement triggered something in Keller. "Gun!" he shouted, drawing his weapon with practiced speed. "No! It's just paperwork." Isaiah started to explain, raising his hands, but Keller had already fired twice. The first bullet tore through Isaiah's right shoulder, spinning him against the car. The second struck his abdomen, dropping him to the pavement as fiery pain exploded through his body. Through shock-blurred vision, Isaiah saw Keller standing over him, making no move to provide medical assistance. Instead, the officer spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, I've neutralized an armed suspect on Highway 16. Send backup." Not, "I need an ambulance for an injured man." Not, "officer-involved shooting." Just, "neutralized a suspect." Language that erased both Isaiah's humanity and the reality of what had just happened. As consciousness began to fade, Isaiah was vaguely aware of another car stopping, someone shouting, and the distinctive sound of a cell phone camera recording. His last thought before darkness claimed him was of his 8-year-old daughter Zara, waiting for him to come home with the stuffed penguin he'd promised to bring her from his trip. The video of the shooting went viral within hours. A black Army officer in partial uniform, clearly complying, shot without provocation by a white police officer. The footage was unambiguous. But while social media erupted in outrage, Isaiah Washington fought for his life in an ambulance, racing toward the nearest trauma center, unaware that wheels much larger than local law enforcement were already beginning to turn. The emergency trauma team at Virginia Commonwealth Medical Center worked frantically to stabilize Major Washington as he arrived, his uniform soaked in blood. GSW to right shoulder and lower right quadrant of the abdomen. BP dropping, pulse thready, the paramedic reported as they transferred him to the trauma table. The lead surgeon, Dr. Anita Patel, immediately recognized the military uniform beneath the blood. "He's service?" she asked sharply. "Army according to his ID. Some kind of officer." The nurse confirmed, cutting away the blood-soaked shirt to reveal the full extent of the injuries. Dr. Patel nodded grimly. "Alert Walter Reed, we may have a military transfer once he's stable, and somebody contact his command." Within 30 minutes of Isaiah being wheeled into surgery, the hospital lobby filled with military personnel. Colonel Eleanor Torres strode through the entrance, her face a mask of controlled fury. As Isaiah's commanding officer in military intelligence, she had received the alert while in a classified briefing. "I need an update on Major Washington's condition immediately," she demanded at the nurse's station, flashing credentials that made the hospital administrator's eyes widen. "And I'm establishing a security perimeter around his room. No one gets access without my approval." 2 military police officers took positions outside the operating room doors, while others secured the hospital entrances. Word traveled up the chain of command with unprecedented speed. At the Pentagon, General Marcus Hamilton watched the viral video of the shooting for the 6th time, his expression growing darker with each viewing. As head of the Army's Intelligence Command, Hamilton had personally recruited Isaiah for the Keystone Initiative, a classified operation targeting emerging terrorist networks that required the expertise Isaiah had demonstrated during his deployments. "Play it again," he instructed his aide, studying every second of the encounter. "There's no provocation. Washington is clearly complying, clearly identifying himself as military." The aide, a young lieutenant, hesitated. "Sir, the police department is already claiming Officer Keller thought he was reaching for a weapon." Hamilton's eyes flashed. "I don't give a damn what they're claiming. I know Washington. 3 tours under fire without a single questionable decision. Bronze Star with valor. He doesn't panic and reach for weapons during a traffic stop." He turned away from the screen. "Get me a secure line to Strategic Response Division, authorization code Crimson." The aide blanched. "Sir, Protocol Crimson hasn't been activated since Tehran in 2019. "I'm aware, Lieutenant. The line, please." While the public face of the Pentagon issued carefully worded statements expressing deep concern and awaiting full investigation. A very different conversation unfolded 7 levels below ground in a secure conference room unmarked on any official Pentagon blueprint. The Strategic Response Division (SRD) existed in the shadowy space between military intelligence, special operations, and executive action. Created after 9/11 to protect critical military assets from non-state actors, its mandate had evolved to include response options when traditional channels of justice failed or were compromised. Around a polished black table sat 5 individuals: General Hamilton, Colonel Victor Reyes, SRD's commander, Major Diana Chen, legal counsel, Commander Jackson Ross, operations, and Dr. Eliana Kazan, psychological assessment. "Major Washington isn't just any officer," Hamilton began without preamble. "He's irreplaceable to Keystone. His language skills and network of intelligence assets took years to develop. The operation, which impacts national security at the highest level, cannot proceed without him." Colonel Reyes nodded. "Beyond his operational value, there's the message this sends to every black service member if his shooter walks free, which appears to be the likely outcome given the local jurisdiction's history." The Mapleton Police Department has cleared Officer Keller in 3 previous shootings of black men. Commander Ross added, sliding folders across the table. Their internal affairs has a documented pattern of dismissing racial complaints. The county prosecutor, Richard Wilson, has never indicted an officer despite 27 shootings in his tenure. Dr. Kazan leaned forward. We're also seeing evidence of coordinated disinformation already. Local news is running stories questioning why Washington didn't simply comply, despite clear video evidence that he did exactly that. Major Chin, the legal counsel, was the only person who looked uncomfortable. I must remind everyone that Protocol Crimson constitutes extrajudicial action. We would be operating outside any legal framework. The framework has already failed, Hamilton replied coldly. Keller has been placed on administrative leave with pay. The union lawyer is already crafting the feared for his life narrative. The chief of police and Keller are members of the same hunting club. Are we expected to wait for a system designed to exonerate him to suddenly work differently this time? Silence fell around the table. Finally, Colonel Reyes spoke. Protocol Crimson exists precisely for situations where the normal channels of justice are compromised and the threat to military personnel or operations is severe. I believe we've established both conditions. He looked around the table. We'll need unanimous consent to proceed. One by one they nodded, even the reluctant Major Chin. For the record, she said quietly, I believe this action, while extra-legal, serves justice where the law cannot. As the meeting concluded, Hamilton stared at the image of Isaiah Washington frozen on the screen, a decorated officer who had risked his life repeatedly for his country, now fighting for that life because of the color of his skin. Initiate full-spectrum intelligence gathering on Keller and everyone connected to this case, he ordered. I want options on my desk within 24 hours. Meanwhile, at the Mapleton Police Department, Chief Thomas Brennan called Officer Keller into his office, closing the door. You've stirred up a hornet's nest, Ryan. This isn't some random black kid from the projects. This is Pentagon. Keller shrugged his face, showing no remorse. He was reaching. I reacted according to training. Save it for the cameras, Brennan snapped. I've already called Wilson. He'll handle the grand jury like the others. Just lay low, stick to the script about fearing for your safety, and this will blow over like always. Neither man noticed the small break in conversation pattern as a sophisticated Pentagon surveillance system began recording everything said in the room. The first piece of Protocol Crimson was already in motion. What happens when a military intelligence operation focuses its considerable resources on a small-town police department? How far would you go to protect one of your own? Lieutenant Commander. Zoe Chambers adjusted her Department of Justice credentials as she walked into the Mapleton Police Department. The credentials were flawless forgeries created by the SRD's technical division, but her confidence came from something else entirely, the knowledge that the full weight of the Pentagon stood behind her cover. I'm here to see Chief Brennan, she informed the desk sergeant with practiced authority. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her navy suit impeccably pressed, the very image of a federal investigator. The truth was far more complex. A naval intelligence officer with specialized training in counterintelligence and domestic threat assessment, Zoe had been handpicked for this mission because of her background in law enforcement before joining the military. She understood police culture from the inside, which made her uniquely qualified to penetrate it. The desk sergeant eyed her suspiciously. The chief is in meetings all day. Zoe didn't blink. This takes priority. Justice Department, Civil Rights Division. Or would you prefer I come back with a federal warrant for departmental records? Minutes later, she sat across from Chief Thomas Brennan, whose florid face barely concealed his hostility. The shooting is already under internal investigation, he insisted, leaning back in his chair. Officer Keller has an exemplary record. Zoe opened a folder. 3 previous shootings of black men, all deemed justified without independent investigation. 17 civilian complaints of racial profiling, all dismissed. That's an interesting definition of exemplary, Chief Brennan. Brennan's expression hardened. You people come down here from Washington thinking you understand what it's like on these streets. My officers make split-second decisions to protect themselves and the public. And yet, Zoe countered, white suspects with actual weapons are somehow taken into custody unharmed at remarkable rates in your jurisdiction. I'd like access to Officer Keller's personnel file body camera footage from the incident and all radio communications. Brennan's smile didn't reach his eyes. That would require a warrant, Commander. The use of her military rank instead of her Justice Department cover was a calculated move meant to unsettle her. Zoe didn't flinch, though internally she noted this red flag. Someone had already alerted Brennan about her real identity, which meant either a leak or more likely that Mapleton had better intelligence connections than anticipated. The paperwork is being processed, she replied smoothly. In the meantime, I'll be conducting interviews with department personnel. I trust you won't obstruct a federal investigation. As she left Brennan's office, Zoe was already transmitting coded updates through her secure phone. Back at her hotel room that evening, she connected to the SRD's secure server, uploading what she'd gathered. While officially stonewalled, she'd managed to access unprotected department computers and clone several officers' phones using SRD technology that was years ahead of commercial capabilities. What she found confirmed their worst suspicions and revealed even darker truths. Officer Ryan Keller's digital footprint told the story of a man whose racism wasn't casual but deeply ingrained. His private social media accounts were filled with dehumanizing memes about black people. Text messages recovered from his phone included exchanges with fellow officers about hunting season when patrolling predominantly black neighborhoods. Most damning was his membership in a private group called The Real Shield, where officers from across the country shared tactics for targeting minorities while avoiding accountability. In one post from just 3 months earlier, Keller had written, "Caught another one trying to play the 'I serve my country' card. Your kind only serves when there's no other option. Remember who really keeps this country safe." The systematic racism extended beyond Keller. Chief Brennan and District Attorney Richard Wilson had exchanged dozens of messages coordinating responses to police shootings, including discussions of how to discredit victims and influence grand juries. One message from Wilson explicitly stated, "The usual approach should work here. I'll make sure the grand jury only sees what supports the officer's account." Zoe's report included specific documentation of evidence tampering witness intimidation and civil rights violations spanning years. The pattern was unmistakable. Mapleton's justice system didn't merely fail to hold officers accountable, it actively conspired to ensure they never faced consequences for racial violence. She ended her report with a professional assessment. Based on comprehensive intelligence gathering, there is zero probability of justice being served through normal channels. The corruption is systemic and deeply entrenched. Keller has already been assured by both his chief and the district attorney that he will face no charges regardless of evidence. While Zoe conducted her investigation, Isaiah Washington regained consciousness at Walter Reed Medical Center, where he'd been transferred once stable enough to move. Colonel Torres was at his bedside when he opened his eyes. "Welcome back, Major," she said with uncharacteristic gentleness. Isaiah's voice was weak. "The officer. He said something before he shot me." Torres leaned closer. "What did he say, Isaiah? This is important." Isaiah's eyes, though clouded with pain medication, held absolute clarity. "He said your kind doesn't belong in an officer's uniform." Then he fired. Torres nodded grimly, recording his statement on a secure device. "Rest now. The Pentagon is aware of everything that happened." As she left his room, Torres didn't mention the security detail disguised as hospital staff or the counter-surveillance measures protecting him from potential threats. The news cycle, meanwhile, was already shifting. Major networks that had initially reported on the shocking shooting of a black Army officer began running segments asking, "Was the officer reaching for something?" and "Police under pressure." The challenges of split-second decisions. Panelists debated whether Isaiah's movement toward his back pocket justified Keller's response, despite clear video showing Isaiah verbally identifying what he was reaching for. Social media campaigns questioning Isaiah's character emerged simultaneously across multiple platforms, all traced by SRD analysts to accounts connected to police unions and right-wing groups with histories of defending officers in racist shootings. Do you believe the system is designed to protect officers like Keller no matter what evidence exists? Comment number 1. If you think the justice system would have worked if given the chance. Or number 2, if you believe what happened next was inevitable. Like this video. If you've ever witnessed the power of connections protecting someone from consequences they deserved. Subscribe to see how the Pentagon's shadow operation unfolds as they prepare to deliver their own brand of justice. Would you want the military to intervene if traditional justice failed you, or is taking the law into their own hands, crossing a moral line? The machinery of injustice ground into motion with practiced efficiency in Mapleton. Chief Brennan called an emergency meeting with his command staff the morning after Zoe's visit, unaware that every word was being captured by surveillance devices she had planted. "This Washington shooting is priority 1, he announced to the room of white faces. "The Justice Department is sniffing around, but we handle this like always. Control the narrative, protect our officer." Captain James Mercer, head of Internal Affairs, nodded. "I've already conducted the preliminary interview with Keller. He's sticking with the story that he saw the suspect reaching for what he believed was a weapon. Standard fear-for-life justification." "Good," Brennan replied. "What about witnesses?" Lieutenant Sarah Daniels, the department's public information officer, consulted her tablet. 3 civilian witnesses. 1 recorded the video that's online. We've identified all of them. 2 have minor criminal records we can use if needed." "And the dash cam?" Brennan asked. Captain Mercer smiled. "Technical malfunction during the critical seconds. Very unfortunate timing." The room filled with knowing chuckles. None of them showed the slightest concern for the decorated military officer fighting for his life because of their colleagues' actions. They only cared about protecting their own. The systematic cover-up extended beyond the police department. District Attorney Richard Wilson held a press conference on the courthouse steps, his expression appropriately grave for the cameras. "My office will conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into this officer-involved shooting. We ask the community for patience as we gather all the facts." What the cameras didn't show was his meeting with Officer Keller and police union attorneys an hour earlier, where he outlined exactly how he would present evidence to the grand jury to ensure no indictment. "I'll select jurors who respect law enforcement," he assured Keller. "We'll emphasize the stress you were under the split-second nature of the decision. I'll bring in experts to testify about reaction time and perceived threats. Trust me, we've done this dance before." The local media played their part in the cover-up. The Mapleton Daily News ran a front-page profile of Keller titled "Officer Under Fire, the Man Behind the Badge." The piece detailed his high school football career, his children's achievements, his volunteer work with the Police Athletic League. Not mentioned were the previous shootings, the civilian complaints, or the racist text messages. A sidebar article questioned why Major Washington was driving through Mapleton at all, insinuating something suspicious about his presence in the town. Sources close to the investigation wonder what business a Pentagon intelligence officer had in our small community. The article stated planting seeds of doubt about the victim. Meanwhile, evidence that might have supported charges against Keller began disappearing. The original dashcam footage was corrupted during transfer to the state crime lab. Witness statements that contradicted Keller's account were modified in the official record. Officers canvassed the neighborhood where the shooting occurred, subtly intimidating residents from coming forward with information. "Remember, we patrol these streets every day," they would mention casually. Best to stay uninvolved in these controversial matters. The most disturbing aspect of the cover-up targeted Isaiah Washington himself. While he recovered at Walter Reed, protected by military security, investigators from Mapleton began digging into his background, looking for anything to discredit him. They requested his military disciplinary records, financial history, and even medical information, seeking some flaw to exploit. When legitimate avenues yielded nothing damaging, Isaiah's record was exemplary, they began fabricating information. Rumors appeared in local media about anger issues during his deployments, about financial problems that didn't exist, about a non-existent history of confrontations with authorities. The black community in Mapleton recognized the familiar pattern. Pastor Michael Johnson of First Baptist Church organized a peaceful protest demanding justice for Major Washington. 24 police officers in riot gear met 50 protesters with batons and pepper spray. 6 people were arrested, including Pastor Johnson, charged with inciting a riot, despite video showing him actively calling for calm. The message was clear: resistance would be crushed. What the Mapleton authorities didn't realize was that every move they made was being documented by SRD's surveillance. Every deleted file was already backed up on Pentagon servers. Every intimidation tactic was recorded. Every closed-door meeting was monitored. Lieutenant Commander Zoe Chambers moved invisibly through their circles, gathering intelligence and planting devices. She attended the police union meeting where officers openly discussed how to pressure witnesses. She recorded Chief Brennan instructing officers to find anything they could use against Washington. She documented D.A. Wilson telling his staff to prepare the grand jury for a justification finding. Her most significant breakthrough came when she managed to access Officer Keller's private communications with other members of the Real Shield group. After the shooting, he had messaged several members, "Took care of another uppity one today." Tried to use his military status like it made him special. 2 in the body shut him up quick. The responses included congratulations and racist jokes about teaching them their place. This evidence proved not only Keller's racial motivation, but his lack of any remorse or concern that he had nearly killed a man. Zoe's comprehensive file painted a picture of corruption so entrenched that it functioned as a system rather than individual failures. Her assessment to SRD was unequivocal. Justice through legal channels is impossible in this jurisdiction. The corruption extends through all levels of local government. They have already determined the outcome regardless of evidence. At Walter Reed, Isaiah Washington watched news coverage of the aftermath with growing despair. Despite video evidence, despite his military service, despite everything, the system was rallying to protect his shooter. "They're saying I was aggressive," he told Colonel Torres during her daily visit. "They're saying I should have complied faster. I did everything right, exactly as I was trained, and they're still painting me as the threat." Torres's expression revealed nothing of the classified operation already in motion. "The truth will come out, Isaiah," she said. "The Army stands behind you." What she didn't say was how far the Army was willing to go to ensure justice when the system designed to provide it had been thoroughly corrupted. In the Pentagon's secure SRD facility, General Hamilton reviewed Zoe's latest intelligence briefing. His decision was already made. "Proceed to Phase 2, he ordered. "Protocol Crimson is now fully authorized." The weight of command settled heavily on General Marcus Hamilton's shoulders as he strode through the Pentagon's subterranean corridors toward the secure conference room where Colonel Victor Reyes awaited him. For 30 years, Hamilton had served his country with unwavering dedication, making countless difficult decisions in war zones across the globe. None had troubled his conscience quite like the one he faced now. The evidence compiled by Lieutenant Commander Chambers was irrefutable. The system meant to deliver justice had instead become a mechanism for ensuring its absence. "The complete file, sir," Colonel Reyes said without preamble, as Hamilton entered, sliding a tablet across the polished table. "Everything is authenticated and verified through multiple sources." Hamilton spent 40 minutes reviewing the materials in silence. The racist messages, the coordinated cover-up, the fabricated evidence, the witness intimidation. Most damning was the recording of Officer Keller himself speaking to a fellow officer after a police union meeting. These Pentagon types think they can throw their weight around, but Wilson's got my back. 2 weeks of paid leave, then back on patrol. Maybe next time that Washington guy sees a police car, he'll remember to stay in his lane. Hamilton placed the tablet down carefully, his expression hardening. We've confirmed there's no path to justice through civilian channels. Reyes nodded grimly. Commander Chambers has documented systematic obstruction at every level. The police department is destroying evidence. The prosecutor is actively working to prevent charges. Local media is complicit in character assassination of Major Washington. The corruption is absolute. And our legal options. Reyes gestured to a comprehensive analysis prepared by Major Chin. We could attempt federal intervention, but given the current political climate and the documented relationship between the Mapleton power structure and certain federal officials, even that path is likely to fail. Best case scenario, years of legal battles while Keller remains free and the narrative continues to damage Major Washington's reputation and career. Hamilton moved to the window overlooking the Potomac, his reflection ghostly against the darkening sky. Victor, what we're considering crosses a line. Once crossed, there's no going back. Colonel Reyes joined him at the window. With respect, sir, that line was crossed when a racist officer shot a decorated soldier for reaching for his service record. It was crossed when an entire justice system mobilized to protect that officer rather than hold him accountable. The question isn't whether a line has been crossed, it's whether we allow that transgression to stand unchallenged. Hamilton turned to face him. Protocol Crimson was designed for exceptional circumstances, when military personnel face threats from non-state actors that civilian authorities cannot or will not address. We've never deployed it domestically against American law enforcement. The threat is the same, Reyes countered. Keller targeted Major Washington specifically because of his military status. His own messages confirm this. He resented a black man holding rank. This wasn't just an attack on Washington as an individual, it was an attack on what he represents as a black military officer. The precedent of allowing such an attack to go unpunished threatens every service member of color. Hamilton returned to the table reviewing the psychological assessment Dr. Kazan had prepared. Washington's shooting has already affected morale among minority service members. Intelligence indicates discussions across multiple bases, questioning whether their service protects them from the racism that threatens civilian counterparts. The message we send here matters beyond this single case. After several moments of silence, Hamilton made his decision. Protocol Crimson is authorized with parameters. Primary target is Keller alone. Those who enabled him will face consequences through other means. No collateral damage. Operation designed to appear as non-military in nature. Full deniability. Reyes nodded, already mentally selecting personnel for the mission. I recommend Master Sergeant Derek Carter for operational lead. Hamilton raised an eyebrow. Carter. He's one of our best, but his personal history makes him perfect for this. Reyes interrupted. His brother was killed by police in similar circumstances 5 years ago. No charges filed despite multiple witnesses. Carter understands the stakes on a level others can't. That same personal connection makes him emotionally involved. With respect, sir, we're all emotionally involved now. Carter's training will override any personal feelings. His motivation will ensure mission success. Hamilton considered this, then nodded. Brief him. Full operational discretion within the established parameters. I want daily updates and immediate notification of any complications. As Reyes left to set the operation in motion, Hamilton activated a secure line to Walter Reed Medical Center. I need to see Major Washington. Personal visit, no record. 2 hours later, Hamilton sat beside Isaiah's hospital bed. The younger officer attempted to sit up straighter despite his injuries. General, sir, I wasn't expecting. Hamilton waved away the formality. At ease, Isaiah. This isn't an official visit. He studied the man he had personally recruited years earlier. Despite the pallor from blood loss and the evident pain, Isaiah's eyes remained sharp, intelligent. How are you holding up? Isaiah's laugh held no humor. Physically, I'll recover. 3 surgeries so far. They saved my kidney, but I lost part of my liver. He gestured to the muted television where a news channel was discussing his case, the banner reading, "Questions emerge about Army officers' actions in shooting." The character assassination is harder to repair. They're making me out to be the aggressor somehow. The department released selective parts of the dash cam footage that conveniently exclude Keller's comments about my kind not belonging in uniform. Hamilton's expression revealed nothing of the operation already in motion. Isaiah, I want you to know that the highest levels of the Pentagon are aware of what happened to you. We've been monitoring the situation closely. Isaiah's eyes flashed with bitter anger. With all due respect, Sir, monitoring won't change anything. Keller will walk free. The system is designed to protect him. Systems can fail, Hamilton said quietly. When they do, other mechanisms activate. Something in his tone made Isaiah study him more carefully. Sir, well? Hamilton stood, placing a hand briefly on Isaiah's uninjured shoulder. Focus on healing, Major. Justice takes many forms. Sometimes it comes through unexpected channels. Before leaving, he added, whatever happens next, your only concern is recovery. That's an order. The words hung in the air between them, an oblique assurance that forces were in motion beyond the corrupt local system that had failed him. That same evening, in a small apartment near Fort Belvoir, Master Sergeant Derek Carter received his briefing from Colonel Reyes. A towering figure with 15 years in special operations, Carter had completed missions in environments so classified their locations never appeared in any official record. His expertise was becoming a ghost, entering impossible places, completing sensitive objectives, and disappearing without leaving evidence. As he reviewed the file on Officer Ryan Keller, his expression remained professional, betraying nothing of the memories it evoked. His brother Marcus shot 7 times during a traffic stop in Alabama, the officer claiming he feared for his life, despite Marcus being unarmed and compliant. Carter had been deployed overseas when it happened. He returned to find the case already closed, no charges filed, his brother buried, and the officer back on patrol. Parameters, sir, he asked, his deep voice revealing no emotion. Colonel Reyes outlined the mission objectives. Primary target is Keller only. Operation must appear non-military in nature. Local authorities should attribute it to organized crime or similar. Complete deniability, no collateral damage. Carter nodded, already formulating his approach. Timeline. You have 72 hours for planning and surveillance. Execution window begins after that at your discretion based on optimal conditions. Support assets. Full SRD resources are at your disposal. Technical Division has already established surveillance on the target's home vehicle and communications. Cyber Division is preparing digital cover operations to reinforce the non-military narrative post-execution. Carter closed the file. Understood, sir. Mission accepted. As Colonel Reyes left, Carter opened a locked drawer and removed a photograph. Himself and his brother in happier times, both in uniform. Marcus had been a Marine. Different branch, same fight, Carter murmured to the image. He returned the photo to its place and began methodical preparation for the mission. Meanwhile, at O'Malley's bar in Mapleton, Officer Ryan Keller celebrated with fellow officers his paid administrative leave, feeling more like a vacation than punishment. To the thin blue line, he toasted, raising his 4th beer of the evening. Always has our backs. The officers around him cheered, none of them noticing the nondescript man nursing a ginger ale at the far end of the bar, recording everything with technology far beyond civilian capabilities. The countdown to Protocol Crimson's execution had begun. How does a military operative prepare to deliver justice when the system fails? What price is paid when those sworn to uphold the law become its greatest threat? Master Sergeant Derek Carter moved through Mapleton like a shadow, establishing surveillance on Officer Ryan Keller with methodical precision. From a nondescript rental apartment half a mile from Keller's home, Carter monitored feeds from microscopic cameras placed at strategic locations throughout the officer's daily routine. SRD's technical division had provided him with surveillance equipment that even most intelligence agencies didn't know existed. Devices that could capture conversations through closed windows by detecting minute vibrations on glass surfaces, thermal imaging that mapped the interior of Keller's home through walls, and facial recognition software that tracked his movements throughout the town. Target maintains predictable patterns, Carter noted in his secure log. Zero situational awareness, no security precautions despite high-profile nature of shooting. This complacency would make the operation simpler, but reflected Keller's absolute confidence in the system's protection, a confidence the evidence suggested was well-founded. Carter studied every aspect of Keller's life with clinical detachment. He memorized the layout of Keller's single-story ranch home, noting entry points, blind spots in the modest security system, and the officer's habit of leaving his service weapon in the bedside drawer rather than securing it properly. He mapped Keller's routines: the morning coffee at Mapleton Diner, the after-shift drinks at O'Malley's, the Thursday poker games with fellow officers, the Sunday barbecues with his brother's family. He noted Keller's increasing cockiness as days passed without consequences for the shooting. Simultaneously, SRD's cyber division began their part of the operation. Their mission was twofold: dismantle the support network protecting Keller and create a digital framework that would direct investigation away from any military connection after the operation concluded. Specialists hacked into the Mapleton Police Department's servers, extracting evidence of departmental corruption that was strategically leaked to selected journalists known for their integrity. They accessed private communications between Chief Brennan and District Attorney Wilson, creating rifts by sending manipulated messages that bred distrust between the conspirators. Most importantly, they planted digital breadcrumbs connecting Keller to a drug trafficking investigation he had worked on 2 years earlier, a case involving a violent cartel known for retaliating against law enforcement. Digital infrastructure in place, the cyber team reported to Carter. Post-operation local authorities will find evidence suggesting cartel involvement as revenge for Keller's previous casework. Multiple digital touchpoints established will activate upon execution. Carter acknowledged the update and continued his surveillance. Through his high-powered microphones, he captured Keller's phone conversation with Chief Brennan. "Wilson says the grand jury's a done deal. They'll review the case next month, but he's only presenting the edited footage. Nothing to worry about." Later at O'Malley's bar, Carter listened as Keller bragged to a fellow officer. "Should have seen his face when I pulled him over. Another entitled one thinking his uniform makes him special. Bet he won't reach so quick next time." The officer laughed. "If there is a next time. Heard you got him pretty good." Keller smirked. "2-center mass. Would have finished the job if that witness hadn't stopped. Taught that uppity soldier a lesson he won't forget." Carter's expression remained impassive as he recorded every word, but his jaw muscles tightened imperceptibly. He had heard similar language before from the officer who killed his brother. The same casual dehumanization, the same lack of remorse, the same confidence in facing no consequences. As the operation progressed, Isaiah Washington began receiving anonymous updates about the corruption investigation. Evidence of police department cover-up leaked to Washington Post. Read one message. Chief Brennan implicated in evidence tampering. Stated another. The updates sent from untraceable numbers were carefully crafted by SRD to prepare Isaiah for what was coming without revealing the full scope of Protocol Crimson. Though still recovering at Walter Reed, Isaiah felt a grim satisfaction seeing the system that protected Keller beginning to fracture. What he didn't know was that these developments were merely precursors to the final phase of justice about to be delivered. The night before the operation, Carter finalized his preparation. His equipment was minimal but precise, military-grade tactical gear that left no identifiable traces, a weapon that couldn't be connected to any database communication devices that operated on frequencies undetectable by civilian technology. His entry and exit routes were planned with multiple contingencies. The timing was calculated to ensure optimal conditions. 200 a.m. when Keller would be alone and asleep when neighborhood surveillance cameras switched to their backup systems for daily data transfers, creating a 3-minute blind spot. The weather forecast promised a thunderstorm, providing natural cover for any sounds and reducing visibility for potential witnesses. As Carter completed his final equipment check, his secure phone delivered a message from General Hamilton. Parameters confirmed. Authorization final. Mission proceed. With that, the last administrative barrier to Protocol Crimson was removed. Justice denied through proper channels would now arrive through shadows. Do you believe some people are simply beyond redemption? Comment number 1. If you think everyone deserves a chance at redemption, no matter what they've done, or number 2, if you believe some actions forfeit that right. Hit the like button if you've ever witnessed justice arrive from an unexpected direction. Subscribe to see how this military operation unfolds in the dead of night. Would you sleep soundly knowing an elite operative was coming for you? Or would your conscience keep you awake long before they arrived? Precisely at 2 o'clock in the morning, as thunder rolled across the Mapleton sky, Master Sergeant Derek Carter moved toward Officer Ryan Keller's house. Rain lashed against his tactical gear as he navigated through the darkness with night vision technology far beyond civilian grade. The neighborhood security cameras had entered their daily backup cycle exactly 3 minutes earlier, creating the predicted surveillance gap. Carter approached from the rear of the property where a 6-foot wooden fence offered concealment from neighboring homes. The security system protecting Keller's residence was basic: motion sensors, door alarms, and a single camera covering the front entrance. Carter bypassed them using SRD equipment that intercepted and looped the existing signals, making the system blind to his presence while continuing to register as functioning normally. The back door's lock yielded to specialized tools in 17 seconds. Carter entered silently, moving through the kitchen with practiced efficiency. Thermal scanning had already confirmed Keller's location, alone in the master bedroom sleeping. His weapon, as intelligence had indicated, was in the bedside drawer rather than properly secured. The house was quiet except for the sound of rain against windows and Keller's steady breathing. Carter moved room by room, verifying the absence of unexpected variables. The living room showcased police commendations, mounted alongside hunting trophies. A bookshelf held family photos: Keller with his children at a lake, Keller receiving an award from Chief Brennan Keller at a police charity event. A normal life for a man who had taken normal lives without consequence. In the hallway leading to the bedroom, Carter paused at a framed newspaper article about Keller's first lethal shooting, a black teenager named Jamal Crawford. The headline read, "Officer Cleared in Shooting of Armed Suspect." The article didn't mention that the weapon was later confirmed to be a cell phone or that multiple witnesses contradicted the official account. The story repeated itself twice more in Keller's career, each time with different victims, but the same outcome. Carter entered the bedroom moving with a silence born from years of special operations training. Keller slept soundly, his conscience unburdened by the lives he had taken, the families he had destroyed. His breathing remained deep and regular, untroubled by nightmares. Carter activated a device that would temporarily jam any outgoing signals from the house. No calls could be made, no alarms triggered. The isolation was complete. "Officer Keller." Carter spoke, his voice calm and measured. Keller's eyes snapped open, instinctively reaching toward his bedside drawer. "I wouldn't," Carter advised, already holding the weapon Keller had been reaching for. Keller froze, fully awake now, taking in the figure standing at the foot of his bed, the tactical gear, the professional stance, the absolute control of the situation. "Who are you? What do you want money? I'm a cop." "I know exactly who you are," Carter interrupted. "Ryan Keller, 36 Mapleton Police Department. 3 shootings of unarmed black men, all deemed justified without proper investigation." Most recently, you shot Major Isaiah Washington during a routine traffic stop after making racist comments about his military service. Keller's face shifted from fear to calculation. This wasn't a random home invasion. This was connected to Washington. His mind raced through possibilities. Federal agent, military vigilante. Listen, whatever you think happened with Washington, it was a clean shoot. I feared for my life. The department cleared me. The department conspired with you, Carter corrected. Chief Brennan D.A. Wilson, the union representative. You all worked together to bury evidence, intimidate witnesses, fabricate justifications. You believed the system would protect you as it has 3 times before. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Keller's face. Who sent you, FBI, military police? You can't do this. There are procedures, protocols. Yes, Carter agreed. There are protocols. Protocol Crimson specifically, activated when normal channels of justice are compromised and military personnel are targeted. Understanding dawned in Keller's eyes. You're from the Pentagon. Carter neither confirmed nor denied maintaining professional detachment. I'm here to inform you that your actions have been deemed a direct attack on a military officer. Evidence indicates this was not a mistake or misunderstanding, but a deliberate targeting based on racial animus and resentment of Major Washington's status. Keller's training finally kicked in. Look for opportunities. Establish rapport. Find leverage. Look, I get it. You military guys protect your own. But this was a misunderstanding. Washington reached suddenly. I reacted based on training. Maybe I was wrong, but it wasn't murder. It wasn't. Your text messages indicate otherwise. Carter interrupted, reciting from memory. Took care of another uppity one today. Tried to use his military status like it made him special. Your conversation at O'Malley's bar taught that uppity soldier a lesson he won't forget. Your call with Officer Brooks. These Pentagon types need to remember their place. Keller's face drained of color. You've been watching me. Every word, every movement, every conversation since the shooting. Desperation replaced calculation in Keller's expression. Listen, I have children, a family, whatever you're planning. Major Washington has a daughter, Carter replied evenly. 8 years old. She watched the video of you shooting her father. She asks her mother every night if the bad policeman is coming for her too. Keller tried a different approach. I'm sorry, okay, I made a mistake. I can admit that. I can make a statement, tell the truth about the department's cover-up. I can help you bring down Brennan and Wilson. They're the real problems. They've been covering up dirty shoots for years. Carter studied him impassively. Your sudden concern for justice is noted but comes too late. The decision has been made at the highest levels. Protocol Crimson is not negotiable once authorized. Real fear bloomed in Keller's eyes as he realized pleading wouldn't work. This is America. We have laws courts. You can't just... Laws that didn't protect Major Washington. Courts that were prepared to exonerate you despite clear evidence. The system you relied on to escape consequences has failed in its fundamental purpose. Alternative measures became necessary. Carter removed a small device from his tactical vest. This will be attributed to the Salazar cartel retaliation for your work on their case 2 years ago. Digital evidence already exists supporting this conclusion. Local authorities will find connections too compelling to ignore. Keller's breathing quickened. Please, I was just doing my job. Your job was to protect and serve. Carter said, his professional demeanor finally showing a crack of emotion. Not to hunt black men for sport. Not to shoot a decorated officer for reaching for his service record. Not to brag about it afterward. Keller made one final desperate lunge toward Carter, who sidestepped with practiced ease. The struggle was brief and one-sided. Minutes later, Carter methodically planted the evidence that would direct investigation toward cartel involvement. Specific shell casings, distinctive method-selected items taken to suggest robbery was a secondary motive. He conducted a final sweep to ensure no traces of his presence remained. At precisely 2:23 a.m., Carter exited the property through the pre-planned route, disappearing into the storm as silently as he had arrived. By the time neighborhood security cameras resumed normal function at 2:31 a.m., he was already miles away, equipment secured, digital footprint erased. The rain continued to fall on Keller's darkened house, washing away what little physical evidence might have existed. Inside, justice had been delivered with the same clinical efficiency with which Keller had delivered injustice to his victims. Dawn broke over Mapleton with sirens. Officer Ryan Keller's body was discovered by his partner, who had become concerned after Keller failed to respond to calls and texts. The Mapleton Police Department immediately mobilized in force, flooding the neighborhood with officers, forensic teams, and supervisors. Chief Brennan arrived within 30 minutes, his face ashen as he surveyed the scene. "Cartel hit," the lead detective concluded after preliminary examination. "Professional job. Same signature as the Salazar operations we've seen in Norfolk and Richmond." By noon, news helicopters circled overhead as the official statement was delivered. Officer Ryan Keller, recently involved in the controversial shooting of an Army officer, had been killed in what appeared to be retaliation for his previous work on drug trafficking cases. No suspects had been identified. No witnesses had come forward. At Walter Reed Medical Center, Isaiah Washington watched the breaking news alert on CNN, his expression unreadable. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Justice delivered. Stand down, Major." He stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it, understanding now what General Hamilton had meant by other mechanisms. The official Pentagon statement released 2 hours later expressed concern over the apparent targeting of law enforcement officers and offered full cooperation with local authorities in their investigation. Behind closed doors, Protocol Crimson entered its final phase, systematic dismantling of the corrupt network that had protected Keller and others like him. The death of Officer Ryan Keller sent shock waves through Mapleton, but not in the way Chief Thomas Brennan had anticipated. Rather than rallying around their fallen officer, the police department found itself under siege from multiple directions. By noon on the day Keller's body was discovered, the FBI arrived with warrants for departmental records, not related to Keller's death, but to evidence of civil rights violations uncovered through anonymous tips. Simultaneously, 3 national news outlets published detailed exposés on the Mapleton Police Department's history of racial profiling and evidence manipulation. These stories featured internal emails, text messages, and recorded conversations that had been strategically leaked by SRD's cyber division, all carefully sanitized to protect their source. Chief Brennan stared at his computer in disbelief as his private conversations with District Attorney Wilson appeared verbatim in the Washington Post. "How did they get these?" he demanded of his IT director, who could only shake his head in confusion. "Our systems show no breach, no unauthorized access." What the IT director couldn't detect was technology developed in Pentagon labs specifically designed to leave no digital footprint. By day 3, the carefully constructed narrative protecting Keller and the department began to collapse entirely. An anonymous source provided local reporter Sophia Martinez with complete unedited dashcam footage of Washington's shooting, showing clearly that the major had identified what he was reaching for and that Keller had made explicitly racist comments before firing. The footage also revealed Keller's callous disregard afterward, making no effort to provide medical assistance as Washington bled on the pavement. Martinez's report went viral, generating renewed public outrage. The governor announced a state investigation into the Mapleton Police Department. Chief Brennan found himself abandoned by former allies, including Mayor Robert Phillips, who publicly called for his resignation. "The evidence of systematic misconduct is too overwhelming to ignore," Phillips stated at a press conference, conveniently forgetting his previous support for the department's tactics. District Attorney Wilson fared no better. Anonymous packages arrived at the State Bar Association and the Attorney General's office containing documentation of his coordination with police to obstruct justice in multiple cases involving officer misconduct. Within a week, he faced disbarment proceedings and a criminal investigation. The officers who had helped cover for Keller discovered their private text messages, published their misconduct, exposed their careers in jeopardy. The system that had protected them for so long had not merely failed, it had been methodically dismantled. At Walter Reed Medical Center, Isaiah Washington followed these developments with grim satisfaction, tempered by moral ambivalence. The justice being served was real, but the method troubled his conscience. During his recovery, he had pieced together enough to suspect military involvement in both Keller's death and the subsequent exposures. The precision, the timing, the systematic nature of the revelations all pointed to an organized operation rather than coincidental whistleblowing. Isaiah's suspicions were confirmed when Colonel Eleanor Torres visited him 6 days after Keller's death. Though she spoke carefully, avoiding explicit confirmation, her message was clear. "The situation in Mapleton has been resolved through multiple channels," she said. "Those responsible for injustice are facing consequences. Those who enabled them are being removed from positions of power." Isaiah met her gaze directly. Was it necessary? Taking it that far? Torres's expression remained professional, but her eyes held conviction. Justice through proper channels was attempted and deliberately obstructed. The evidence Commander Chambers gathered demonstrated absolute corruption at every level of local authority. Protocol Crimson exists precisely for situations where all legitimate avenues have been compromised. She paused. The decision wasn't made lightly, Isaiah. Though Torres had not explicitly acknowledged Keller's death as a military operation, the subtext was unmistakable. Isaiah struggled with the implications. As a military officer, he had taken lives in combat. But that was war with clear rules of engagement, clear enemies. This was different. This was execution on American soil. Yet he couldn't deny the cold truth: the system had been prepared to exonerate his shooter despite irrefutable evidence. Without intervention, Keller would have returned to patrol, perhaps to shoot someone else's son or father or brother. "I never asked for this," Isaiah said finally. "I would have accepted whatever outcome the justice system delivered, even if it was unjust." Torres nodded. "Which is precisely why the decision wasn't yours to make. This wasn't just about you, Isaiah. It was about what you represent. Every black service member watching to see if their uniform protects them from the racism that threatens their civilian counterparts. Every future Major Washington wondering if their country values their service enough to demand justice when they're wronged." She rose to leave. The military protects its own, not just for the individual, but for what they represent. Meanwhile, Master Sergeant Derek Carter debriefed with Colonel Victor Reyes in a secure Pentagon facility. His report was clinical, detailed, omitting nothing about the operation's execution. Target neutralized according to protocol parameters, evidence planted as directed, no complications or witnesses. Reyes studied him carefully. "And your personal assessment of the mission?" For the first time, Carter's professional demeanor showed a crack. "Sir, I executed my orders with precision. The operation achieved its objectives, but—" He paused, searching for words. "My brother was killed by a police officer 5 years ago. No charges, no consequences. I joined the military partly to find structure discipline, a system that held people accountable. I never imagined I'd be ordered to deliver the justice the civilian system denied." Reyes nodded in understanding. Protocol Crimson is never activated lightly. The ethical considerations are substantial, but when systems designed to deliver justice become mechanisms for preventing it, alternative responses become necessary. Carter met his gaze. "Will this change anything, sir, beyond this one case?" "That remains to be seen," Reyes replied honestly. "But the corruption in Mapleton is being exposed root and branch. The officers who enabled Keller are facing federal charges. The department will operate under oversight for years. If nothing else, we've created consequences where there would have been none." In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects continued to spread. The Justice Department announced a pattern or practice investigation into the Mapleton Police Department. The state legislature introduced police accountability legislation named after Isaiah Washington. National media ran extensive coverage of racial disparities in police use of force. Lieutenant Commander Zoe Chambers remained in Mapleton, now operating openly as part of the federal investigation team, ensuring that evidence of corruption was properly documented and prosecuted. Her cover as a Justice Department investigator had become her actual role, though she alone knew the full scope of how the evidence had been gathered. The official investigation into Keller's death quickly focused on cartel connections, just as SRD had planned. Detectives discovered financial transactions suggesting Keller had been skimming from drug seizures. They found communications with known associates of the Salazar organization. Each piece of evidence had been meticulously created by SRD's cyber division, building an alternative narrative so compelling that investigators never questioned its authenticity. For Isaiah Washington, recovery continued both physically and psychologically. The surgeries had been successful, though he would carry scars and some permanent nerve damage from the shooting. The psychological impact ran deeper. Nightmares about the shooting, hypervigilance around police, a fundamental shift in how he viewed the country he had served with distinction. Yet alongside this trauma came a new purpose taking shape in his mind, a way to channel his experience toward preventing others from suffering the same fate while ensuring that extrajudicial responses remained truly a last resort. 6 months after the shooting that nearly claimed his life, Major Isaiah Washington stood at attention in a private Pentagon ceremony as General Marcus Hamilton pinned a Purple Heart to his dress uniform. "For wounds received in service to your country," Hamilton stated formally, though both men understood this was not a combat injury in the traditional sense. The small audience included only those with knowledge of Protocol Crimson, Colonel Torres, Colonel Reyes, Lieutenant Commander Chambers, and a handful of others directly involved in the operation. After the ceremony, Hamilton spoke with Isaiah privately in his office overlooking the Potomac. "Your recovery has exceeded medical expectations, Major," he noted, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. "Physical therapy reports indicate 90% function restored to your shoulder." Isaiah accepted the drink with his right hand, the same arm that had taken Keller's first bullet. "The body heals more readily than the mind, sir." Hamilton nodded in understanding. "And your psychological evaluation?" "I've been cleared for full duty," Isaiah replied carefully, "though I still have moments. Flashbacks, anxiety when I see police vehicles. The therapists call it normal post-traumatic response." He hesitated before continuing. "But there's something else troubling me that no therapist can address." Hamilton met his gaze directly. "Keller." It wasn't a question. Isaiah set down his glass. "I've had 6 months to piece things together, sir. The timing, the precision, the systematic dismantling of the cover-up, the convenient evidence pointing to cartel involvement, the text message I received." He paused. "Protocol Crimson isn't in any official military documentation I can access." "Nor should it be," Hamilton replied evenly. "Some responses must remain off the books precisely because they operate where traditional systems fail." Isaiah leaned forward. "With respect, sir, we executed an American citizen on American soil without trial. Whatever Keller did, whatever he deserved, we circumvented the entire justice system." "A system that had already decided to exonerate him despite irrefutable evidence," Hamilton countered. "A system so thoroughly corrupted that justice through legitimate channels was impossible." He studied Isaiah thoughtfully. "You're troubled by the ethics of our response. That speaks well of your character, Major. The day we become comfortable with such measures is the day we lose something essential." Isaiah couldn't disagree with the assessment of Mapleton's corruption, but the method still haunted him. "Where's the line, sir? Today, it's a racist officer who shot a soldier and would have walked free. Tomorrow," Hamilton's expression grew solemn. "That's precisely the question that keeps me awake at night, Isaiah. Protocol Crimson has been activated exactly 4 times in 20 years. Each authorization requires unanimous consent from multiple commanders, exhaustive documentation of why traditional justice has failed, and direct authorization from the highest levels. The safeguards are substantial." He paused. "But any power can be abused. Any system can be corrupted. We saw that clearly in Mapleton." Isaiah considered this. "Then we need better oversight. Not to prevent necessary action when systems fail, but to ensure the power is never misused." Hamilton smiled slightly. "That's exactly why I've requested your transfer to Strategic Response Division. Your experience gives you perspective few others possess. You understand both the necessity of Protocol Crimson and the danger it represents." Later that day, Isaiah visited the site of his shooting for the first time since that fateful traffic stop. The stretch of highway looked ordinary. No marker, no memorial, nothing to indicate that a man had nearly died there for the crime of reaching for his service record while black. As he stood on the shoulder where he had lain bleeding, a black SUV pulled up nearby. Master Sergeant Derek Carter stepped out dressed in civilian clothes. The two men had never formally met, yet Isaiah immediately recognized him from intelligence briefings. No words were necessary. Their shared look acknowledged everything. What had happened, what had been done in response, the complex moral weight they both carried now. Carter nodded once, a gesture of profound respect between warriors who understood the burden of necessary but troubling actions. Isaiah returned the nod, neither condoning nor condemning, but acknowledging the reality they both lived with. As Carter drove away, Isaiah made his decision. The next morning he submitted a formal proposal to General Hamilton for a new initiative within SRD, a confidential program to support service members facing civilian racial injustice. The program would provide legal resources, media strategy, personal security, and other assistance to ensure that Protocol Crimson remained truly a last resort, activated only when all legitimate avenues had been exhausted. "We can't prevent racism in civilian law enforcement," Isaiah wrote in his proposal, "but we can create systems to protect our people that don't require extreme measures except in the most dire circumstances." The proposal included rigorous oversight protocols for Protocol Crimson, additional layers of review, clearer criteria for activation, and regular ethical assessments by a panel with diverse perspectives. Meanwhile, in Mapleton, the transformation continued. The police department operated under federal oversight with new leadership and training focused on racial equity and de-escalation. Chief Brennan had resigned in disgrace, facing federal charges for civil rights violations and obstruction of justice. District Attorney Wilson had been disbarred and indicted for corruption. The officers who had participated in the cover-up had been removed from their positions. The City Council had established a civilian oversight board with real power to investigate police misconduct. These changes wouldn't bring back the victims of Mapleton's systemic racism, but they created accountability where none had existed before. 6 months after these reforms began, Lieutenant Commander Zoe Chambers met with community leaders, including Pastor Michael Johnson, whose church had become a center for healing and reconciliation. "The system actually worked this time," Johnson observed. "Consequences for those who abused power, real change in policies and practices." Zoe, who alone knew the full truth of how that change had been catalyzed, nodded. "Sometimes systems need external pressure to function as they should." "Like the Pentagon getting involved after one of their own was shot," Johnson suggested. Zoe's expression revealed nothing. Justice finds its path sometimes through unexpected channels. At Walter Reed Medical Center, Isaiah's daughter Zara visited the children's ward where young patients of all backgrounds received treatment. The 8-year-old had started a program bringing stuffed animals to children recovering from traumatic injuries inspired by her father's experience. "When my daddy was hurt, I was really scared," she explained to a child recovering from a car accident. "But this penguin helped me be brave. Now he can help you be brave too." Isaiah watched from the doorway, his chest tight with emotion. The shooting had changed him, changed his family, changed systems in ways both visible and hidden. The cost had been high, not just his physical injuries, but the moral complexity he now carried. Yet watching his daughter transform her fear into compassion, he found hope that perhaps the next generation might build systems that delivered justice without requiring shadows to enforce it. Later that night, alone in his Pentagon office, Isaiah opened a secure file containing all documentation related to Protocol Crimson. As the newly appointed Ethics and Oversight Director for the program, he had both the clearance and the responsibility to understand every aspect of the operation that had both saved and complicated his life. The file included the complete surveillance of Keller, the evidence of Mapleton's corruption, and the detailed planning of the operation that had delivered final justice. The last document was a psychological assessment of Isaiah himself prepared by Dr. Kazan before Protocol Crimson was authorized. The conclusion read, "Major Washington represents the highest ideals of military service." The failure to secure justice for such an officer sends a devastating message to every service member of color. Beyond the individual case, this is about what we stand for as an institution. Sometimes justice must be secured through extraordinary measures when ordinary ones fail. The moral cost is real, but the cost of inaction is greater. Isaiah closed the file. Understanding now the full weight of the decision that had been made, justice had indeed been delivered, but at a price paid in the currency of moral certainty. The system had been changed, but the change had come through shadows rather than light. As he prepared to leave, Isaiah noticed a small package on his desk that hadn't been there earlier. Inside was a stuffed penguin identical to the one he had promised to bring his daughter the day he was shot. Attached was a note in unfamiliar handwriting, "So you never forget what we're really fighting for." Isaiah placed the penguin on his desk, a reminder of both what had been lost and what had been gained in the pursuit of justice. The system had failed him, then been forced to change through means outside the system itself. The paradox would never fully resolve, but perhaps it wasn't meant to. Perhaps the tension between justice and method, between systems and shadows, was itself necessary, each keeping the other in check, each preventing the other from becoming absolute. What do you think? Was the Pentagon justified in taking matters into their own hands when the system failed, or did they cross a moral line that can never be uncrossed? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this story made you think about how justice sometimes requires extraordinary measures, hit that like button. If you want to see more stories that explore the complex realities faced by people of color in America, subscribe to the channel. And if you know someone who needs to hear this perspective, share this video with them. Thank you for joining me for this journey through the shadows of justice. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most important battles for equality happen far from the spotlight, in the quiet decisions of those with the power to change broken systems. This story reveals uncomfortable truths about justice in America. When systems designed to protect everyone equally become corrupted, they create two tiers of justice, one for those with power and another for those without. Major Washington's experience demonstrates how quickly institutions close ranks around their own, disregarding evidence and manipulating narratives to protect those who abuse authority. The Pentagon's response raises profound questions about when extraordinary measures become necessary and the moral cost of operating outside established systems. True justice requires functioning institutions that hold everyone accountable, regardless of position or power. When official channels fail, alternative mechanisms emerge, sometimes through shadows. This creates a dangerous precedent, yet also serves as a necessary check against corruption. Perhaps the most important lesson is that systems don't change willingly. They must be forced to evolve through pressure exposure and sometimes through consequences delivered by unexpected means. For every Major Washington whose story reaches the spotlight, countless others face similar injustice without powerful institutions defending them. Their stories rarely end with accountability for those responsible. What would you do if traditional justice failed you or someone you love? Comment below about whether you believe the Pentagon's actions were justified or if they crossed an unacceptable line. If this story made you think about the complex realities of racial justice in America, hit that like button and subscribe for more thought-provoking content that examines difficult truths. Share this video with someone who needs to understand the everyday battles faced by people of color in systems designed to protect everyone equally. Thank you for joining this journey through the shadows of justice, and remember that change begins when we confront uncomfortable realities together.